NCCE membership update. We are excited to have you here tonight. We're excited to all be together and to be able to share all of the updates and the information that we have. We've got a lot going on, so it's going to be a great evening to share a lot of information and to have some question and answer time. So we're looking forward to hearing from you as well as we move through our evening. We have several people here tonight that we would like to introduce as we begin our welcome. We currently have about 70 people in attendance, it looks like. We had approximately 161 registrants. We know that some people registered saying that they knew they wouldn't be able to attend, but they registered so that they would get the recording, so that you know that we are recording tonight, and we will be sharing the recording with everyone who is registered later. So if you have to step away or you aren't able to attend at all or stay the whole evening, then you will be able to look at it later. So please pass that information along to your coworkers that maybe weren't able to attend this evening. So with that, I think that we will have Jeanette share the PowerPoint so we can go through our introductions. Great. So, as I said, welcome to our NCCE summer meeting. We are virtual again. This reminds us of the last time we were virtually together as a large group, as you can see in the picture, which was in 2020. So thankfully, this is just an update for convenience being done virtually, not out of necessity. So next slide, Jeanette. Here's a brief introduction. We're going to go through upcoming events. We're going to talk about our ongoing and new initiatives, as well as a special event that we're trying to plan. And then we are going to talk about the ACAPT reorganization and the Clinical Education Commission, which will be being announced very shortly. So next slide. We're very honored and happy to have some special guests here with us tonight. We have several of the ACAPT Board of Directors who are able to participate this evening with us, and that includes Mark Reinking, the ACAPT President, Peter Altenberger, the ACAPT Vice President, Kim Fernando, our Secretary, and Julia Shevin, our Treasurer. So thank you all for attending. We also have John Buford, our ACAPT Board of Director and Liaison to the NCCE. So thank you, as always, for your attendance and support of your clinical education community. We're also happy to have our ACAPT staff. Not sure what we would do without the ACAPT staff. When we reach out to Sandy, Eleanor, Jennifer, and Robin on a regular basis to help us bring things to our clinical education community, they always are there to support and help us. So thank you for all you do and for being here to engage with us tonight. If, as we go along, as we're sharing anything, if any of you have additions to what we're presenting or sharing, please feel free to drop a note in the chat or reach out, raise your hand and ask for the opportunity to speak, and we will see what we can do. Jennifer is here tonight to help us with some of that tech stuff behind the scenes. So we'll make sure that you can share your thoughts as well. Next slide. We also have many of our current NCCE board members here with us this evening. Myself, Janice Howman, the chair of the NCCE, and Jeanette Scardilla, our vice chair, will be the ones who are primarily talking this evening and sharing information with you. We also have Colette Pinetuck, who is our secretary, who will be taking notes and watching for chat and helping us out in the background. And then our academic DALs, Amy Both, Matt Garber, Jeanette Kanishny, and Tara Parody are also here this evening, as well as our clinical DALs, Tabitha Bonnie Roseboom, Jacqueline Carson, Amanda Crouch, Susie Maciel, and Kelly Myers. Our nominating committee, several of them are able to be here as well. So Jamie Dehan, Kelly Sass, and Catherine Billieu. We really want to send a shout out to our nominating committee. As we know, as we're moving through our transition year this year, the nominating committee kind of got roped into all kinds of other activities than probably what they initially planned as they joined our board this year. So thank you to all of our NCCE board members for all of your work and dedication over this year and for all of the things that we're doing. Next slide. I'm going to turn it over now to Jeanette Scardilla so that she can share with you a lot of our upcoming events information.
Welcome, everyone. So we're going to start out by talking about some of the ACAPT events that are happening, general ACAPT events, so that you're aware of some of the things that are happening within ACAPT. First, there will be 2 events that are co-sponsored by ACAPT. The Gamer Workshop will be before ELC. Not before ELC, it'll be October 26th to the 29th in Charleston, South Carolina. It's going to be a 4-day interactive workshop. This is the whole gamer. In addition, ACAPT is co-sponsoring the Training in Grantmanship Rehabilitation Research, or the TIGER workshop, which is also a 4-day intensive, and that will be in January of 2024, also in Charleston, South Carolina. You'll note that the application deadlines are on the screen, and then you can also scan the QR code. So Janice made lovely QR codes throughout the presentation. So if you would like additional information on anything that is shared tonight, you can scan the QR codes. You'll also be able to get this, our PowerPoint will be uploaded to our website so that you can get the QR codes that way as well. The next thing we wanted to add, there will be a free simulation networking event that is going to happen Tuesday, June 27th from 7 to 8 p.m. You will need to register. The scan QR code here will help you register. And this is sponsored by SIPTech, the simulation consortium. We also have an exciting announcement. We've already done a little bit of a save the date, but we will be hosting a webinar similar to our resource sharing webinars. However, this one will be a little bit longer and also be available for continuing education credit. It will be, the title of it is Healing Out Loud, Coping Strategies for the Learning Team. It will have a large mental health focus within clinical education. We are very honored to have speakers Sarah Wallace and Nikki Pappas from the VA to join us for this webinar. It'll be August 29th from 7 to 9 p.m. and you are the first people to see this registration link. So if you would like to register for the event, you can scan the QR code. It is $20 so that we can cover the CEU cost for our ACAPT members. But again, you will be getting certificates for continuing education credit. So we hope you can all join us for that wonderful webinar as well. We have openings for additional resource sharing webinars within our series. We're hoping to do at least one more in 2023, and also plan to help pass this on to the commission to maybe continue these resource sharing webinars moving forward. Past this year, we had one in March of 2023 that was titled Utilizing Clinical Academic Partnership to Cultivate CI Development Opportunities. It was an excellent webinar that was put on by the University of Colorado. And you can access that with this QR code so that you can see that. And it is a free webinar that you can access there. If you are interested in sharing some of the resources that you or your clinical partners have developed, if you're a clinical partner that you have developed, if you're an academic, we like to have a pairing to help show the partnership that is available within the clinical education team. And if you're interested in coming up with a resource sharing webinar, you can contact us at ncce@acapt.org to express some interest in different topics that you're interested in. I would be the one who would be calling you back or emailing you back to give you more information. ELC is right around the corner, down from me in Philadelphia. So we're really excited to have it on the East Coast this year in Philly. There are going to be some pre-conference courses that are related to clinical education we wanted to let everyone know about. First up, they are holding a CCIP level 2 course as a pre-conference to ELC. There's also a course held by one of our former NCCE board members. He's presenting as well. That's Mitigating Microaggressions in Physical Therapy to Foster Belonging. That will be the morning of Thursday, October 12th. We will be holding our NCCE regional networking session, which we're really excited about. I have a slide on that. And then the ACAPT business meeting will also be there. During the Education Leadership Conference, we will be holding our annual membership meeting. So this is a little precursor to our full meeting that will be happening. Janice will talk a little bit more about that later. ACAPT has a platform presentation during the conference that's going to be defining academic physical therapy. And so you can come and learn a little bit more about ACAPT's broad integrated definition of what academic physical therapy is. And then we are also excited that we will again be partnering with the CE-SIG to have a joint session. The title of our session is going to be Clinical Education Partnerships, Off to the Races. Thank you to one of our authors for coming up with our little acronym there. During this, we're going to share some examples of academic clinical partnerships on these following themes: research collaborations, advisory services, community engagement, educational opportunities, and then support, mutual support. And as you can see, it spells out races. ACAPT also wanted us to remind everyone, especially the clinicians on the call, that there is a reduced rate for clinicians. If you're an APTA member, $300 and then $350 for non-members. So please take advantage of that. This year, we are planning our regional networking session, which will be in the afternoon of the day before ELC on Thursday. This year's theme will be expanding our mindset, rethinking clinical education from the student perspective. We are going to try and challenge educators to think about clinical education from the student perspective. With this, we have planned some firsthand accounts from students about how clinical education went and what could have gone better, what could have gone worse. And then as a group and with your regional consortia, coming up with some ways that we can better enhance the student experience to really reach academic excellence. We are really hoping to make this our biggest networking session ever. And in previous years, we did have requests from regional consortia about specific groups that we wanted to include. This year, we would like everyone. So whoever would like to attend that is involved in clinical education, you will be able to register for the event. Registration is forthcoming. And again, we just want to make it the biggest that we've had so that we can really get everyone involved and get all the voices at the table. We will ask again that regional consortia please pass on the invite to all of the schools within your consortia, and then also all of the clinical partners that are in your regions as well. And I will pass it back to Janice.
Great. When Jeanette's talking about the annual regional consortia networking session that we do at ELC, I think that, for those of you who are new tonight and have not attended an NCCE event before, and those of you who've been, part of activities before, I think that that NCCE is very dedicated to networking and to our regions and our regional consortia. So the annual ELC regional networking session is something that we have done. I think this year will be our 8th year that we have been doing that. And the collaboration, the networking across regions has just been amazing to watch that grow and develop. The other thing that NCCE has been promoting for that regional networking and to reach the regions is our clinical education roadshow. So the roadshow objective is really to, instead of just having that once a year event where the regional consortia have to come to ELC and we have to get our clinical partners to come to ELC, which can be difficult because of the travel costs, the limited time off for especially our clinical partners. So the thought was, how do we go to the regions? And so the objective of the Clinical Education Roadshow really is to help the regional consortia through a very interactive session explore the communication and best practices within their region. And then also, how is their region collaborating across regions and into that national network? Our specific activities during this interactive networking event, where we come to your home, right, rather than having the regions come to the national level. The goal is to really introduce your local clinical educators to all of the national CE network at that local, regional, and national level, and to all of the resources that are available. The first roadshow that we ran, we were really surprised at how the clinical partners were really excited to see about what resources were available and that they had not been aware of. So that was a really exciting component of the roadshow that we had last fall. We also are excited about the fact that we are gathering data. So we have data from our past regional networking activities about what the consortia are doing. What do the structure of the consortia look like? What is their functions? What are their outcomes? What are they doing? And now we can kind of take that and look at that data and talk about benchmarking across, not for comparison, but for helping everyone to share best practices. Why recreate the wheel? If somebody in New England is doing something, someone in the Intermountain Consortium doesn't want to have to reinvent the wheel. So how do we help to kind of cross-pollinate those ideas for the regional networking? And that has also been very well received so far. And finally, our goal really for the regional the regional roadshows is to really help those local clinical partners and local academic programs to feel connected to their national network. So again, it helps to make those connections at that local, regional, and national level to build to that broader network. We have this information for you available on the NCCE website, well, not necessarily the ACAPT website. There's a page about the regional consortia roadshows. So follow the QR code and you can take a look at that. Next slide, Jeanette. So want to do a shout out again to the New England Consortium for being our inaugural regional consortia roadshow. We had this last November. We had approximately 100 people that we were able to interact with and network with. And it occurred at Franklin Pierce Institution. And then also we had a simulcast going at the same time to another, and I'm sorry, I'm going to forget where our other location was, but we were also simulcast to another academic program within that region to be able to reach more clinical partners and academic programs. And it was, I think, a fantastic success. So thanks again, New England Consortium, for working with us. It was a pleasure to work with you. Next slide. We're excited to say that we have 2 roadshows on the calendar for this year. So this fall in November, we are going to be going to Missouri State University to work with the Central Coordinators of Clinical Education. And that will be on Saturday, November 4th. And then we're going to turn around, and the weekend after that, we're going to be in Lexington, Kentucky, and Walsh University in Canton, Ohio, for the Ohio-Kentucky Consortium of Physical Therapy Programs for a roadshow with them. So looking forward to bringing you more information about how those go after this year. We are also starting to look into 2024. Our goal is to have 2 roadshows again in 2024. So if your regional consortia is interested in learning more about this, please send us an email at ncce@acapt.org, and we will get in touch with you and get that conversation going. Next slide. Back over to you, Jeanette.
Okay. So next we're going to talk about some ongoing and new initiatives that have been started within the last year. The first one we're going to talk about is the Task Force on Clinical Education Placement Capacity and Process Innovation. It's a mouthful. We really thank this work group that has been working really hard with their chair, Jamie Greco. This specific task force has 2 subgroups. There's the placement process subgroup and the capacity subgroup that are doing different things, and we'll go over what each one of them is. But we did want to acknowledge the people who are on both of those subgroups for all of the work that they have been doing. They've been working really hard to get to the bottom of placement capacity and process innovation when it comes to the placement process. So the task force's primary objectives was to gather data regarding current and projective clinical education capacity, to determine if capacity issues are affecting our current placement process, and to explore some options for transforming the current placement process. We all know it's a little broken, but we want to figure out the why, and then what do we need to do now to reach excellence within clinical education. So within the placement process subgroup, where they are at currently, they have completed a scoping review of the literature and have identified some themes. They're in progress with consolidating and overlapping themes, and then their next steps are going to be to finalize a concise list of themes, and then they're going to work on their subgroup report to then be presented to ACAPT and the NCCE board. Then the capacity subgroup, they completed the development of the inpatient and outpatient surveys and have distributed the inpatient survey via the ACAPT partnership. If you are a clinical partner who currently places students within the inpatient environment, there's still some time to complete the inpatient survey. So please check your emails to give us some additional data about how you are placing students within the inpatient setting. They are also scheduled to start distributing the outpatient survey on July 6th. So if you are an SCCE who places in outpatient, please complete the survey. It was very intentional to split up inpatient and outpatient because we know that they're placed a little bit differently. And so we really wanted to get capacity numbers on inpatient and capacity numbers on outpatient. And so the group did. And so that's why there are the two separate surveys that are going out. Please, clinical partners, consider participating in the inpatient and the outpatient survey. Academic partners, if you speak with any of your clinical partners, please encourage them to fill it out. We have had lots of people already fill out the survey. We are very excited with some of the numbers that have been coming through, and we're really hoping that the information that is given from these surveys is going to help us move forward. This group's next steps is to receive all the anonymous data and then complete a true data analysis, then to complete their report for ACAPT and the NCCE. So culmination of the full task force in October of ELC, we're hoping that the subgroup will give recommendations and reports will be shared. The end of 2023 to 2024, there's going to be a synthesis of all of the subgroup work, some brainstorming, some innovations, and then developing some recommendations for the clinical education community. And the hope is that the final report will be completed and submitted by February or CSM. The next task force that was recently created, that's falling under the NCCE oversight, is the task force on clinical partner engagement. We have Chair Lori Neely and then Vice Chair Paul Gagne, who've been working very hard with their task force, and these are the people who are on the task force currently. Just to note, it is a mix of academic and clinical educators that are on this task force. So we're really excited that they all volunteered to help us in this way. So the task force's primary objectives is to assess the current landscape of clinical partner engagement in academic physical therapy, and then to make recommendations to ACAPT to foster and increase clinical partner engagement. We asked them to consider engagement at institutional and also individual levels, engagement at local, regional, and national levels, and then the potential for inclusion of CE sites in ACAPT's membership structure. Where they are currently, so they are developing a working definition of the CE site institution, individual clinical sites versus health systems versus national corporations, and really trying to tailor down that definition. They are developing focus group questions to gather information about current levels of engagement. They were accepted for a presentation session at ELC for 2023. Part of their session is going to be to present what they've come up with so far. And then the other part of the session will be a data gathering session so that they can get some additional things to inform their task force. We hope that you can all attend that session so that we can get that data and that task force can be as successful as possible. We anticipate the final report and recommendations to ACAPT by the end of this year. Finally, once a new definition is created, then we need somebody to vet that definition. So in collaboration with the CE-SIG and the PTAE-SIG, NCCE has a joint subgroup where we are working on the common terminology glossary. If you are not familiar with the terminology glossary that is currently available, you can go to ptclinedterms.org to access all of the information that's there. We have a group of individuals led by Amy Both, who is one of our NCCE board members, who will be trying to figure out the process of now vetting new terminology and updating the glossary to make it a true living document moving forward. Their email address is here. If you have questions about that, you can email them there. To go over the subgroup's primary objectives, so really it's to maintain the quality, integrity, and user satisfaction of the glossary that was developed jointly between all of those organizations, to market and promote the use of the approved common terminology, and to continually develop a common language for PT and PTA clinical educators. Where they are now, so they had an April meeting to start off with CE-SIG, PTAE-SIG, and then NCCE leadership. They are beginning to work to develop processes for identifying roles, determining terms, replacement processes for members, determining the necessity of defining various terms, and then to determine how rigorously they will vet new terms for inclusion of the glossary. So they actually have some terms currently that they're going to work through some of these processes for. And that is all for now. We decided to have a little bit of a break to go over some questions and answers, because I know we just spewed a lot of information at you. So if you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat. We have someone available to ask some of those questions, or you can also raise your hand and we can unmute you to ask your question live. Ladies, do we have any questions in the chat?
We do not have any questions right now.
Thank you.
Well, good deal. That must mean we have done a good job of like saying, hey, here's all that's going on right now. I think that you can tell from what we went through, and we tried to go through that kind of rapid fire to get to the rest of the evening here, that we want to talk about kind of things moving forward. But we wanted you to know all of the things that were going on as we're moving through this year, and where we're going as we keep moving through the transition that we're living through right now. But yeah, so if questions come up about the upcoming events, the things that we're doing, feel free to drop them into the chat. Otherwise, we'll move on to kind of a fun event that will lead us into some of our transition discussions. So next slide. So this ELC's membership meeting for the NCCE will be a very special event. We are very much looking forward to celebrating, and we've actually come up with a theme. So the theme of this year's ELC membership meeting will be NCCE Legacy, Celebration, and Inspiration. We are really looking forward to reviewing the things that we have done, the accomplishments that we have made in the time that the NCCE has been in existence. We're going to celebrate the transition from the NCCE to the CE Commission, and we're going to build on the legacy and have inspiration for the future moving forward. So we're really looking forward to this event. We have a subcommittee of both some of our current board members and some of our past board members who are going to be working together to bring a very fun and lively NCCE membership meeting to ELC this year. So mark your calendars. We don't have a date and time yet for when the NCCE membership will be at ELC, but please make sure you watch for that. And we want all of our NCCE and all of our clinical education community to come and celebrate with us. So don't miss this event. Next slide. The planning committee that is starting to work on the NCCE membership meeting at ELC will at some point be reaching out to everyone and provide opportunities for you all to share your NCCE memories. So go back and look through all of your pictures, find those presentations, find those meetings that you had, find those task force group sessions that you had, and pull those out and make sure that you bring those forward so we can celebrate everyone from the clinical education community and everyone from the ACAPT perspective for where we're at and where we're going. So watch for those opportunities. We'll be sending that information out in future newsletters and through the social media and those kinds of things. If you have questions, you know where to find us, right? ncce@acapt.org. Next slide. So obviously, the transition time is a good time to revisit like the organizational structure. So I know again that we have several new people on our meeting tonight. From the registration information, we had, I think, about 45 to 50 people who said they had never attended an NCCE event. So to help, if any of our new people on our call tonight aren't aware of the organizational structure transition that we're talking about, I'm going to do a little bit of a review of what that is. So for some of us that have been a part of this throughout the last year or two, this will seem redundant, so bear with me. But I want to make sure that if there's people on the call that aren't aware of this, that they understand the structure and where we're going. So next slide. So as we have been talking with clinical educators, we noticed that with the transition discussion, there was some confusion on some terms. So before we jump into that, we want to make sure that a couple of things are clear. And the first is the term academic physical therapy. So that's in the ACAPT name, right? So when you see the term academic physical therapy, people tend to think higher ed institutions. They think of the didactic side because of that word academic. But this is all part of the ACAPT definition of academic physical therapy. It is not just the didactic part. Academic physical therapy does include the clinical education, the community partners, the research partners. So making sure that when you or your clinical partners see the word academic physical therapy, they recognize and they see themselves in that word, in that definition. I think we all very well know if we did not have our clinical partners, none of us at the academic institution would graduate a single student, right? It takes the community to make sure that academic physical therapy is successful. The other terms that were a little bit confusing for people were institutions versus institutes. What's the difference between that? ACAPT is an institutional membership organization. So the academic programs are the institutional members of ACAPT. So when we talk about institutions, we're referring to the academic programs and the clinical education sites. When you see the word institutes, now we're referring to the new organizational unit within ACAPT. These are the 4 new institutes that we'll hear a little bit more about in a few slides. And this is the unit that is replacing the current consortia structure. So institute versus institutions. The other term that you'll hear us use is consortium or consortia. And when we talk about that in terms of the ACAPT structure, we're talking about the ACAPT's 9 consortia. So the NCCE, the IPE consortium, the simulation consortium, right? So when we talk about the sunsetting of the consortia, we're talking about the ACAPT consortia, not the regional clinical education consortia. So when we were talking about the regional consortia road shows, and we were talking about the New England Consortium and the Central Area Consortium and the Ohio Kentucky Consortium, those are separate entities and those are not sunsetting. So want to make sure that everyone is clear on that as well. So next slide. So this is the schematic of the new ACAPT organizational structure. And so within the new ACAPT organizational structure, many things are still the same. The ACAPT members are central to the organization. The board of directors is the guiding and leading component of the organization. The ACAPT staff are there in leading and guiding and supporting the organization. There are committees and commissions. The current commission, the NEDIC Commission, or the National Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Commission, I think they've been in existence for a couple of years now. They have had a NEDIC summit. They have a lot of task forces going and are doing some wonderful work. The new commission that is developing and that we're going to talk quite a bit about as we keep moving forward here tonight is the Clinical Education Commission. So that is that kind of green component of the arch. So that's where the CE Commission will fit in. There's also the Center for Excellence, and then the 4 new institutes. So you can see the Institute for Academic Advancement, the Institute for Teaching and Learning, the Institute for Community Engagement, and the Institute for Scholarly Inquiry. So those are the 4 new kind of units of ACAPT. And you might ask, so where's clinical education? We're used to seeing this NCCE, this National Consortium of Clinical Educators. So where does clinical education fit in? I'm not seeing clinical education. Well, clinical education, if you want to advance one more, is everywhere. This is what I think is the most exciting thing for me about this new structure. There's a lot of awesome things about this new structure, but this is for me the biggest thing. And having been involved with NCCE for the last 8 years of its existence, we have had a lot of great opportunities, a lot of great products have come from the NCCE. The thing that we have also noticed as we've moved forward is there's a lot more collaborations and interactions because we're kind of siloed. So things that we're doing with clinical education also overlap with simulation. They also overlap with IPE. They overlap with the Center for Excellence and the IPS survey and the data gathering. So there's a lot of, all of a sudden now we're reaching out and having to interact across these silos. But with this new structure, clinical education is a component of everything everywhere, because that's truly the integration of academic physical therapy. So I think this organizational structure is very reflective of that. Next slide. So in terms of the institutes, the institute structure is one in which there will be an institute chair and an institute vice chair for each of the 4 institutes, and they will be the leadership of that institute. The institutes will then have task forces and that are related to that area. So academic advancement will have task forces, teaching and learning will have task forces, scholarly inquiry. Each of the task forces will be supported by the ACAPT board and the staff, and will each have a board liaison and a staff liaison. And if you think back to what I said about the last slide, when we saw how the institutes were now very integrated, so where can you as a clinical educator say, where can I be engaged? Where am I going to fit into ACAPT now? You're going to have all of these institutes with different task forces where you're going to be able to be engaged, and so you're going to keep your eye to the ground, your ear to the ground, your eye to the screen, and take a look at what's coming out with the institutes and what task forces, and where are your passions and where are your talents, and there will be multiple opportunities for engagement through those new task forces. We're waiting, we had the elections for the institute chairs and vice chairs. And I would suspect that within the coming weeks, we will be hearing the results of the election. The election just closed recently. So we'll be excited to see who our new leadership is in those institutes. And then as the year progresses, as the Institute leaderships get kind of settled into place, we will soon be hearing about, as we move into this fall, the task forces that will be being developed, and looking forward to the coming year with the new task forces. So again, more to come, but keep watching your ACAPT newsletters for more about those things. So the Clinical Education Commission. So this is where I think the news will be all new to everyone. So the Clinical Education Commission is the new entity within ACAPT. And this entity has been collaboratively envisioned and developed by both the NCCE, the ACAPT staff, and the ACAPT Board of Directors. So we have all worked together and have shared ideas, shared thoughts. How are we moving things forward? How are we making sure that everything that the NCCE and ACAPT have built for clinical education continues to move forward in an even better way? And so I thank the ACAPT board and the staff for their dedication and support to the commission. We couldn't have gotten to this point without them. So I'm excited to share some of the details about the Clinical Education Commission with you all tonight. So here are what we've come up with the purposes of the commission. And much of this has been developed looking at the strategic, not only what the NCCE has done and accomplished and what has worked well with the NCCE commission or the NCCE board and the NCCE membership, but also looking at the strategic plan of both ACAPT and the recent strategic plan from NCCE. So we use those documents to kind of guide the development of our purpose and objectives for the ClinEd Commission. So the ClinEd Commission is going to continue to create equitable engagement and collaboration opportunities for academic and clinical partners. I think that anyone who's been involved with NCCE has known that we have really worked hard to ensure that there's an equal voice of both the academic and clinical partners. We have done that through the NCCE membership structure. We have done that through all of our task forces. We have done that through the NCCE board makeup, so that there are always a drive to ensure that there are as many clinical partners on those entities as there are academic partners. The purpose will continue to be the ears to the ground, listening to our clinical education community to identify and prioritize what are the ClinEd needs of the community, and so that we can have ACAPT as continue to be the responsive organization that it is in terms of helping its members, institutions, academic and clinical partners to achieve excellence with clinical education. The commission will continue to serve as a primary advisory voice to the ACAPT board of directors and the ACAPT staff members. It will also guide and assist ACAPT in developing initiatives. So again, as we hear things in the community, we can be bringing that information back to the ACAPT board to say, hey, this is what we're hearing. This maybe is something that we need. What do we think? Is this something that aligns with our mission and can move things forward for the ClinEd community? And finally, we were going to continue to encourage the commission to disseminate best practice and resources and continue to develop resources for the clinical education and the academic PT community. So next slide. This one goes into the more detailed specific objectives of the commission. And again, I hate to just go through and read things off a slide, not good presenting style, but because we think this is all new and we want to make sure that people are hearing some of the things that we were thinking about, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So the specific objectives for the commission are for helping ACAPT to expand its directory. We talk about wanting to reach all clinical educators. So we're going to work to continue to promote inclusion of all PT programs and all clinical education sites within ACAPT, so that ACAPT can represent all of academic physical therapy. We're going to continue to foster active engagement and networking. So all of the networking activities that we have built over the years, The goal is for those to continue and continue to expand. The commission is going to develop and implement strategies to strengthen the academic clinical partnership. Again, that dedication to the equal voice, the partnership, the networking, the building of that national network is going to continue. The commission will collaborate with the ACAPT leadership to continue to bring new initiatives and to advance those initiatives as we move forward for excellence in PT clinical education. There will continue to be collaboration with both internal and external stakeholders. So the commission will interact with the institutes, the task forces, the board, the staff members, making sure that there's coordinated work across ACAP. And the commission will also continue to collaborate with the external entities, the collaborations with the CE-SIG, the PTA-E-SIG, the regional consortia. All of those things will continue to be a focus of the commission. The commission will also continue to advocate for the clinical education community within, so that again, we want every clinical educator to recognize themselves within academic physical therapy. We'll continue to develop and disseminate resources and innovations, and we will continue to cultivate a culture of excellence and encourage clinical education research, participation in ongoing assessment, data sharing, using data to drive our decisions in clinical education. So those are what we have come up with for our purposes and specific objectives. What I want to make sure that everyone also understands is that this is new, right? And so we have done our best. We have put all of our heads together. We have had lots of discussions, but we know that we've missed some things. We know we probably didn't get some things right. So there will be an element when anything new is starting, there will also be that element of learning and adjusting on the fly. And again, I know that the ACAPT board and the staff members are very receptive. I know that I have turned to Mark and Peter and Sandy many, many times to say, hey, wait a minute, have we thought about that? Like, oh, hey, here's something that we've noticed. I think the ClinEd community is hearing this and we want to see about this. And so there's always those opportunities that some of these things may change or adjust as the consortium or as the commission continues to grow and develop over its formative years. So keep that in mind as we've laid these things out. It's an exciting time. Next slide. So if that's what we're hoping to accomplish, how are we doing that? What's it going to look like? So here is the structure of the Clinical Education Commission. So the commission will have a chair. It will have two vice chairs, one of external affairs and one of internal affairs. And there will be a secretary. So that will be the executive committee of the CE Commission. There will also be 5 commissioners. So we strategically went for a CE Commission membership of 9 people because ACAPT has 9 regions, and the 9 regions will have a representative from the CE Commission, just like we do now with the NCCE, and we have 1 ACAPT regional liaison, 1 NCCE regional liaison, and then there's also, I want to say, a research liaison. There's several, but there's a liaison for each region. So the number 9 was very strategic in this. So that's the way we laid that out. And of course, there will be an ACAPT board liaison to the commission, and the ACAPT board support, as well as the staff member support, will continue to be there for the commission. Next slide. So when we think about these positions on the CE Commission, what are each of these members doing? What are these players doing? So we'll kind of go through each of them and have a little bit of information for you, because we want you all to be thinking about, where do I fit in the commission? How could I play a role in this new commission? Where do I see my talents and strengths being maximized within the commission? So take a look at these and be thinking about these positions and how they might relate to you or someone you know. And please pass on the information to them if you know of someone who you think would be a good fit for any of these positions. The chair. So the chair will be the face of the CE Commission. They will be the responsible party to ensure that the commission is meeting its purposes and objectives, making sure that the activities of the commission continue to align with the commission in the ACAPT strategic plan. They will be the connection to the ACAPT board. They will provide progress reports to the board. They will attend board meetings. They will reach out. They will replace me in being that nagging person to call the ACAPT board and to reach out to Sandy and the ACAPT staff. They will advise the board on matters related to clinical education. They will coordinate with the external stakeholders and kind of, again, be the face of the CE Commission to our external stakeholders. They'll consult with the institutes, the task forces, and make sure that if there's anything that they have questions about clinical education, how can they serve as a consultant to those other ACAPT working units, right? And they'll collaboratively assess the outcomes of the commission and make sure that the progress moving forward is the direction that we want to be going. The secretary has, well, what do we do without secretaries in our organizations? Such an integral component of the boards. They will poll for meetings. They will develop the agendas with the rest of the executive board. They'll take the minutes. They'll circulate the minutes. They're the communication mechanism for the CE Commission. They will be disseminating communication to all of the clinical education community and to the other entities within ACAPT. They will be supporting coordination of the commission meetings and programming at meetings like ELC and CSM. So lots of work on those two positions. Next. So the vice chairs, what's the difference? Oh, back one. Thank you. What's the difference between the external and the internal vice chair? Why two chairs? So looking at trying to have one that, again, was more of that connection and working with and making sure all of the pieces that we do with external collaborators keep moving, and those that we're doing internally keep moving. As you saw from all of the things that we are doing at the front part of this meeting, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things that are happening. So dividing this up a little bit will make it, I think, more manageable for everyone. So the vice chair of external affairs will be the person that really is making sure that the networking activities, the activities that we're doing for our external stakeholders, things like the roadshow, things like the regional networking sessions, that those things are happening, that the subgroups planning them are working and moving forward. They will also be fostering and expanding that clinical partner engagement, making sure that we're getting more and more clinical partners connected with and aware of all that ACAPT has to offer. They will be promoting data sharing and the data-driven decision-making that we've been talking about in recent years. They will be helping with the questions related to clinical education on the institutional profile survey, those kinds of things. And they will also make sure that we still have those products, those deliverables for the ACAPT membership as well as the CE community. So all of the webinars that you're used to seeing, the website resources, those will still be being produced. The vice chair of internal affairs will be that person who is the go-to if the chair is not able to continue in their role or has a time. For example, I'm going to be leaving for Botswana for a study abroad for the month of August. And so at this point, Jeanette's getting ready to kind of take over. So that internal vice chair will take over even for temporary times when the chair is not available. They will also be the person that is overseeing the budget. They will be our fiscal manager. So they will work with the ACAPT board to develop a budget for the following year. And then they will ensure that the commission is a responsible steward of the resources that ACAPT has granted for their activities. They will also help to maintain the communication with the internal, the other commission, the NETIC commission with the institutes, so that that collaboration internally is maintained. Next slide. So we still have the 5 commissioners. So what's the role of the 5 commissioners? So the commissioners are that advisory, that sounding board for the commission. So to help with new initiatives, to help with, oh, hey, we heard this, but how broad of an issue is it? So getting some of that sounding board and to help pull in what they're hearing from their regions back to the board, the CE Commission board, as well as the ACAPT board. So they'll participate in regularly scheduled meetings. They'll assist with the subgroups for planning the activities, both the internal and the external activities that we talked about above. So they'll jump up and be some of the worker bees, right, for the activities that the commission is doing. And they will promote opportunities for clinical educators to engage through both elected and appointed positions. So promoting ACAPT and all the engagement opportunities to their regions. We talked about the strategic use of the number 9, and that is so that we will still continue this collaboration for the regional town halls with the ACAPT Board of Directors. Next slide. So that's what the plans are for what the commission is going to do. That's what it's going to look like, you know, what the structure that it's going to have. And those are the individual roles of the different commissioners and executive committee on the commission. So how do you become a part of the CE Commission? Well, the executive committee and commissioners will be appointed by the ACAPT Board of Directors, and that will occur again in collaboration with, for this first year, the NCCE board, and in future years, the commissioners, because they will review the candidates that have applied for these volunteer positions, and they will provide the recommendations to the board. The board will make the final decision and will make the appointments based on the experience and skill sets of the applicants related to the charge and needs of the commission and of the ACAPT organization at that time, and including the recommendations of the NCCE or the commission, depending on what year it is. So while it's a board appointed, there will be involvement of the CE community to be able to put these recommendations forward. The term for each member of the commission, the eventual goal is that it will be 3-year terms. But to get started, we're going to have to split, so we have staggering staggering appointments. So this first year, there will be both 3-year terms and 2-year terms. So the chair, the vice chair of external affairs, and 2 commissioners will have 3-year terms starting this year. And the vice chair of internal affairs, the secretary, and 3 commissioners will have 2-year terms starting this year. And then after that, everyone will be appointed for 3-year terms. The cycle will be that you will assume office at ELC at the annual ACAPT business meeting. So that kind of is the how will this happen? So moving forward to our current call for volunteers, very exciting that this is going to open next Monday. So you're hearing it now, hot off the presses, and the call for volunteers is going to come out on Monday, June 26th. We are really looking for a balanced composition so that we have, again, that near equal academic to clinical partner composition. Obviously, with the number of 9, we can't have an equal unless we split a person in half, right? Which we don't want to do. We will have a balanced representation of academic and clinical partners. We also are really looking for a diverse representation. So we went with required composition and recommended composition. And so the required composition is that there's at least 1 DCE and 1 clinical, either the SCCE or CI. we anticipate that there will be multiple DCEs and multiple SCCs/CIs, right? So however that all plays out. But we also really want and encourage volunteer applications from our clinic site administrators, from our academic program administrators. So having a program director on the CE Commission, having a rehab manager on the CE Commission would be wonderful to have that representation from the higher administrators as well as the DCEs, the SCCs, and CIs. We also thought it would be wonderful to have a non-physical therapy professional who's involved in clinical education, like an OT field worker, a nurse preceptor, someone who might be overseeing the placement of their PT clinical education students, but is from a different profession to bring a different perspective to the CE Commission. So those would be aspirational. We don't know how many applications we'll get from those other kind of stakeholder groups. So of course we had to make those recommended and not required. So again, the goal as we look at applications will be to have a diverse and balanced representation on the CE Commission. As with all ACAPT task forces and units, commissions, committees, to be involved, you need to be an ACAPT member in good standing. So the application process, when the call comes out on Monday, you will have a link to a form that you would fill out. And you do need to be associated with or affiliated with an ACAPT member institution. So if you are from an academic program, you would list which academic program you are from and how that, that's an ACAPT member institution. For our clinical partners that will be applying, we would ask that you make sure that not only putting your institution, your clinical site that you work for, but also putting at least one ACAPT member institution with whom you affiliate, so that we have that connection to an ACAPT member institution. You will have the opportunity to identify the positions that you are interested in. And notice I use the word plural. So if you think, well, I'm best suited for the vice chair of external affairs, but I would also kind of be interested in the internal affairs vice chair as well. You will have the opportunity to mark more than one position and then kind of give us a ranking of what your list of, what you see yourself best suited for, and then other positions you would also be interested in. You don't have to be interested in more than one, but if you are, that you'll have that opportunity to do that. You will be asked to give a brief bio and a candidate statement and your interest in the CE Commission. And then you will also be asked, so that's kind of the narrative portion of the application. You will also then be asked to rate skills in advocacy, your ambiguity tolerance, your innovative skills, your networking skills, and how you see yourself as a team player. So we're looking at those things as we talked about the fact that not everything is going to be set in stone right now. There's going to be some development and some side tracks that we might end up having to take as we move forward through these formative years. And so we're really looking for those people who are wanting to embrace that and to move forward and to help create the future with us here at ACAPT. I think there's one last slide if I'm right. So yeah, so that was kind of what we wanted to share. We're hoping that that overview gives you a picture of the CE Commission, but we wanted to spend the rest of tonight in a question and answer time to make sure that you really understand what the CE Commission is kind of hoping to be as we move forward, and to spark your interest in submitting your application come Monday when that application goes live. So with that, I think, Jeanette, I guess we could put down the PowerPoint and then start to take questions. So I do see that Kay Tasso has a hand raised. Is that, Jennifer, are we able to unmute?
Hi, yes, this is Kate
Great.
Thompson. Thank you. Appreciate that. I want to try and make sure I understand correctly, and then I have a comment. So did I understand you correctly that the commissioners in the very beginning, when the reorganization happens, the commissioners are going to be the ones that appoint the new group?
So they won't appoint the new group. They will provide recommendation to the ACAPT board.
Okay.
They will review the applicants. Now, and right now we're doing it with the NCCE board, and it will be the NCCE board members who are not submitting an application. So any of our NCCE board members who submit an application for the CE Commission will not be part of the vetting process. It will be the NCCE board members who are not. And again, the same thing moving forward. Does that make sense?
It does. That helps. Part of my concern, and I attended something by ACAPT where they're reorganizing as well, and there's, if I understand that one correctly as well, the director of ACAPT is going to be appointing the commissioners, and I have a real concern about that, regardless of what organization. If you look at our chapters, each of our state chapters, most everything we do is based on elections. And I think that's really important. I think in order for folks to have voices, and probably one of the reasons I'm really comfortable saying this is because I am hoping to retire soon and have no intent of volunteering for this. But my concern is that I think we all have a tendency to appoint like-minded individuals. And I think that's a very dangerous road to go down.
Yeah, and I definitely, I hear that concern for sure. And because again, I know that I believe that Mark and Julia and Kim are from the ACAPT board are here tonight on the call. So if you have anything that you want to jump in and add, but I will say that, my initial response is, again, I think we're very focused on ensuring a diverse and broad and equal representation of academic and clinical, and the objectivity of being able to use what initiatives are coming, what is the application and how does it align with the ACAPT strategic plan and the current initiatives going on, and what are the talents that we're looking for to help to move that forward. I think the goal is that is what's, you're right, sometimes those biases sneak in and we don't intend them to, but again, by having some checks and balances, by having a vetting committee of more than one, and then by having the NCCE board right now and the CE Commission in the future, as well as the ACAPT board, there's kind of some checks and balances there to keep that from happening. So Mark, I saw you kind of jumped up to the pinned there. Hi, Mark. I don't know if there's anything that you would like to add to that. I don't want to misrepresent the board.
Yeah, no misrepresentation at all. Mark Ranking, current president of ACAPT until this October. I want to be clear, and Janice, I think you said that eloquently, and I appreciate the question, Kay. Understand that should we decide at some point in the future to go down the road of elections, that would require some bylaws changes for ACAPT, because right now in our elections, the only folks that we elect are the board at this point in time. So, Kay, it's certainly not out of the question. The board, I can tell you, is going to rely on the expertise of the current NCCE board, those folks who aren't putting their names forward for position, for their recommendations. And as Janice said very clearly earlier, this diversity of the commission is really critical to us. So I hear your concern, and so noted. And if there comes a time that we say, there's a better way to do this, that certainly could be entertained in bylaws change.
And to address what you're saying about diversity, I think that's a word people can define in many ways. And, personally, my experience has been the more diverse in terms of skills, education, clinical experience, background, and so on, the better and more creative and innovative ideas you get. So I'd hate to see folks limit themselves in that regard because we're only looking for a certain skill set. And I completely understand what you're saying, Janice, and I appreciate it in terms of you're building something new. So you need to have somebody who can handle change and appreciate it and help grow it. And I don't disagree with that at all. And at the same time, it's really concerning to me that hearing this tonight and hearing what Capty said, it's like, why are we closing off so many things? And why are we relying on others' opinions rather than a greater group of opinions and recommendations and so on? So I appreciate your time. And I just want to say, you know, I've done a lot of clin ed in the past. And to me, clin ed has always done the best job of being sharing rather than competitive, way above more upper administration. So I've always loved this group.
Well, I will have to say thank you very much for that compliment. But I would agree with you. Yeah, I'm a career DCE. You know, got into academia to be a DCE and to not change into any other role. Like knew from the get-go, this is what I wanted to do. And it is that community. The sense of community within the clin ed community is just huge. And the collaboration, the networking, the sharing has been incredible. And so, yeah, I anticipate that continuing as we move forward, for sure.
Yes, we did have a question about will the Clinical Education Commission also include the PTA programs?
At this point, with ACAPT being an organization of PT, physical therapist, academic programs, at this point, it will continue to be for PT educators. But I know that ACAPT is exploring the role with where does PTA education fit in. So at this point, the commission, because it is a component of ACAPT, will continue to focus on, but it will continue to collaborate with PTA education for sure. So again, I saw, Mark, that you kind of opened up, so please feel free to jump in.
Tara, thanks for the question. And I want to be clear, and again, Janice's point on, but we do have an active task force right now looking that's investigating the inclusion of PTA programs in ACAPT. So this is not something we've set aside. This is something we're currently actively evaluating.
Janice, there was an additional question that was there, and I'm no longer actually seeing it, but the question was about the representatives that were from some other field, OT, nursing, those preceptors. If they are not members of an ACAPT institution, how would that work?
So I think, and again, these are great. Sometimes you're going to have questions like, oh, we hadn't thought about that as we were working on this development. As we were looking at that, I think we were looking from the clinical partners perspective. So I assume I'm not unique in this, but I know that some of my clinical partners that are partners of Ohio University, which is a member organization of ACAPT, so that by extension, my clinical partners are able to be connected to ACAPT. And so some of them are the nursing preceptor, some of them are the OT fieldwork coordinator. So they would be able to be connected through their affiliation with a PT program that is an ACAPT member. Does that make sense? Did I articulate that okay? I'm not sure.
Janice, I would add to that PTA educators who are SCCEs in the clinical sense that are placing PTs can also So although you are involved in, or you are a PTA, if you're involved in PT education, you would also have a role in the commission.
Absolutely. I had a question that came to me directly, and they're asking for the timeline for when the call for applications for the CE Commission close. And I'm sorry, I didn't say that. So thank you for asking that question. So the call for volunteers closes on Monday, July 17th. So it will be open from June 26th to July 17th. The goal is to have the review done and have the recommendations to the ACAPT board at their August meeting. And so I would anticipate announcement. I always give myself a little extra leeway. I'm going to say I would say announcement by September in case we don't get it done by the end of August. So, or if there has to be any kind of extension. So at this point, our goal is to have the recommendations to the ACAPT board at their August meeting, which is the week of August 14th. So then obviously some processing time, reaching out, getting people to, confirm their, accept or decline. And then, so September.
And Janet, receive some questions with the registrations, and we hope that they were all covered during the presentation. If they were not, if you would like to raise your hand and get any clarification, if you did send in a question ahead of time.
Thank you, Colette. I forgot to say that. Any other thoughts, questions? If it's not about the commission, potentially about, anything we talked about at the beginning of the meeting. Anything, Colette, Jeanette, anything else that I missed?
I would just say that if you're interested in any of the things that we talked about tonight, specifically the resource sharing webinars, if you're interested in giving any of those, or the roadshow, if your consortium is interested, we will be, Colette gets the email, and it will be going through until October. So please feel free to reach out via that email address, and then Colette will forward to whoever within our board handles any of the things that are happening. And we are looking forward to continuing this year out strong and hoping we have your support to get all of these events and things accomplished.
Well said, Jeanette. I think that this year of transition has certainly, the uncertainty of transition is always there. But I think that we're really to the point where we're excited. We're really looking forward to seeing how we take this solid foundation. The NCCE from its inception to this point has been incredible. Like and come to the membership meeting to see what would come up with. I'm not sure where it's all going to be, but I can sit and think just off the top of my head the things that the NCCE has accomplished, in collaboration with ACAPT. I mean, it's just been such a wonderful partnership. I think about the pandemic, the pivoting that was done, the resources that were developed in the moment to assist, the task forces, the publications, all of the things that are there are an incredible foundation for awesome things to come with the CE Commission and with the new institute structure. I'm really getting excited to see where this is going to take us. So I hope you all are too. We need good people. So I hope that we're inundated with applications. Please make our vetting committee's job really hard. We know there's a lot of great people out there.
Janice,
Come and join the fun.
there was one
Tara.
more question, just I
Sure.
wanted to mention. The question is, moving forward, will there be Clinical Education Commission meetings at ELC like there were NCCE meetings, or will there be Zoom meetings?
The intent is to continue networking and collaborations. I think something that I didn't say in terms of the CE Commission, where the NCCE, we had that one clinical partner and one academic faculty member involved with clinical education as your institutional pair, and we had this NCCE membership. The thing that to me is very exciting is now bring all of your clinical partners, right? Make sure that, we have this huge group of clinical education community there. And yes, there will continue to be in-person meetings at ELC and CSM. I can't tell you what they're going to look like. They won't be necessarily called CE Commission membership meetings because there really isn't a CE Commission membership. It's an ACAPT membership. But if you're registered and you have clinical education in your interest, you will continue to get the CE newsletters, you will continue to get the information, and we'll continue to pull the community together at networking events. And you don't just have to come, the two of you, right? Bring the whole gang. So I hope that answers.
And we would recommend, if you are a clinical educator in the clinic and you have colleagues who are also interested in getting up to date on some of the ACAPT happenings, please encourage them to go to ACAPT's website and fill out the forms for the individual registration, so that you get all of the information that Janice is talking about. You would get our CE newsletters, and then academic partners, please reach out to your clinicians and tell them that this is available. If you are a member of ACAPT and they are a partner of yours, they can then sign up to get all of the information and have access to all of the resources, like the webinars, like, extra meetings that get to learn about and have a voice within the ACAPT community.
Great. Anything else, Tara, that we?
No, there's no more questions.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. If questions strike you, you have two ways to go after this meeting. There's Sandy just put in the chat, ACAPT, I think that was Sandy or Jennifer. The email, acapt@acapt.org. Oh, no, that's the news. Okay, sorry, that's the news. But if you want to reach out with questions, there are two email addresses, acapt@acapt.org or ncce@acapt.org. So we will make sure that we get answers back to you if something strikes you. If you want to reach out and have questions kind of related to you, I'm thinking about, volunteering for a position, and you want to talk to someone, reach out to any of the NCCE board members. They'll be happy to share. So happy to talk with you. So make sure you reach out to us. Thank you all for coming. Make sure to watch for the recording and share with your colleagues who were not able to attend tonight. Thanks, everyone.